Have you ever noticed? It's not the loudest moments that break a man. It's the quiet ones, not the arguments, not the betrayals, not even the losses, but the moments alone, when anger sits heavy in your chest, when disappointment loops in your mind, when your peace feels like it belongs to everyone but you. The hardest lesson I've learned: no one is coming to fix that for you. Peace doesn't arrive. It's built from within, every day, brick by brick. And it starts with one of the rarest skills a man can learn: accepting imperfection, not just in the world, but in people. That's where real altruism begins, not in grand gestures, but in seeing people clearly without needing them to be perfect. Let me show you how that changes everything. Number 1, altruism begins with accepting human imperfection. Let me tell you something most men waste half their life figuring out. You will never have peace if you demand perfection from broken people. And everyone, including you, is broken in some way. This is where altruism begins, not in charity, not in grand gestures, not in some Instagram-worthy act of kindness. It begins in a silent choice to accept reality for what it is. Human beings are flawed, messy, unpredictable, inconsistent, and that includes you. Marcus Aurelius said it simply: whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? This isn't poetry. It's survival. Most of your anger doesn't come from what people do. It comes from your expectations of what they should have done. And here's the brutal truth: expectations are imaginary contracts you wrote without their signature. We create these silent rules for how people should treat us. If I respect him, he should respect me. If I'm loyal, she should be loyal. If I work hard, life should reward me. But life isn't interested in your private rules. People aren't obligated to know your invisible code. And when they fail your expectations, as they will, it leaves you bitter, exhausted, hollow. Now you're walking around angry at the world for not reading a script it never agreed to perform. That's not strength. That's slavery to illusion. Altruism, true, unshakable, masculine altruism, begins the moment you stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to be at peace. Acceptance isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's efficiency of the mind. It allows you to stop burning energy on disappointment and start moving with purpose. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. This doesn't mean you stay in unhealthy situations. Stoic acceptance is not passive resignation. It's strength under control. You see things as they are. You speak truth when necessary. You draw boundaries when needed. But inside, nothing disturbs your inner core. You understand. People lie because they are afraid. People betray because they are hurting. People act selfishly because they are lost. And none of that needs to contaminate your peace. In fact, the more you understand this, the freer you become. Your power no longer depends on their behavior. Your peace no longer dances on the strings of their approval. You give because you choose to give. You love because you have love to offer. You lead because leadership is who you are, not what you get in return. That's altruism. That's stoicism in the trenches of real life. The next time someone lets you down, pause, take a breath, let the sting hit, but don't let it own you. Say to yourself quietly, they are human, so am I. I expect nothing but reality. And watch your anger lose its grip, because a man who accepts imperfection without bitterness is a man nobody can control. That's power. That's freedom. That's where altruism truly begins. Number 2, altruism requires you to give without keeping score. And once you've accepted that people are imperfect, really accepted it, a strange new question appears. Then why should I give it all? Why be kind? Why offer help? Why forgive? Why stay generous in a world that doesn't always repay you? This is where most men stall. They stop here, right at the edge of real strength, because giving without expectation feels like losing. It feels like weakness in a world obsessed with keeping score. A world that says, if I give you something, I'd better get something back. But that's not power. That's transaction. Epictetus warned about this very mindset. Don't expect others to behave according to your wishes. Instead, wish for things to happen as they actually do, and your life will flow smoothly. The man who gives only to receive is always a prisoner. His kindness is chained to conditions. His peace is rented, never owned. Altruism, real altruism, is not a gamble hoping for a return. It's a declaration. I am not here to keep score. I am here to be who I choose to be, regardless of how the world responds. That is freedom. That is untouchable strength. Because here's the secret. When you give without keeping score, without clutching for approval, praise, or repayment, you become shockingly difficult to manipulate. No one can guilt you. No one can control you. No one can weaponize your past generosity against you. Why? Because you didn't give for them. You gave for you. Because giving aligned with your values, not their reaction. Let me ask you directly, how often do you give in silence? How often do you offer help without the need to retell the story later? Without the post for attention? Without waiting for applause? When was the last time you gave fully and then moved on? This is the exercise today. Nothing grand, nothing public, nothing that feeds your image. One private act of generosity, completely invisible. Buy someone a meal without telling them it was you. Write a kind note to a colleague without signing your name. Donate to someone in need and forget you ever did it. Then go on with your life. Watch how light you feel. Watch how detached you become from needing to be seen as the good guy. That is stoic detachment in action. Not coldness, clarity. Not distance, depth. Because here's the deeper truth. The most dangerous man is the one who gives and expects nothing. He doesn't need leverage. He doesn't need recognition. He doesn't even need to be remembered. He operates from principle, not payment. Seneca wrote, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver. And when your intention is pure, anchored in who you are, you walk lighter. No bitterness, no debt, no chains." Ask yourself tonight, before you sleep, did I give today expecting something in return? And if the answer is yes, good. You caught yourself. Tomorrow, do it cleaner. Give smaller. Give quieter. Give freer. Let go of the scorecard. It's only slowing you down. Because the man who gives without expectation is already rich. Number 3. The more altruistic you become, the less anger you carry. Because here's the paradox most men never see coming. The man who gives freely, who expects nothing, who lets go of the scorecard, is the man who begins to feel lighter, not only in action but in spirit. And most importantly, in anger. Anger thrives in the gap between expectation and reality. Wherever that gap exists, resentment grows like weeds. Marcus Aurelius wrote bluntly, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Sit with that for a second. It's rarely the event itself that poisons you. It's your reaction to it. It's the narrative you replay in your head at 2 a.m. It's the imaginary courtroom you hold in your mind, prosecuting people who aren't even aware of the trial. And it always costs you more than it cost them. But this is where altruism, true altruism, becomes one of the most practical weapons against anger. Not because it makes you passive, not because it makes you soft, but because it trains you to look at people differently, to see not the offense, but the wound behind it. Epictetus told his students to assume every offense was rooted in ignorance or pain. If someone does wrong, it is because he does not know better, or he is unwell in his soul. Not to excuse it, but to understand it. Because what man wastes his power raging at a child for stumbling, or shouting at the wind for changing direction? And yet, that's exactly what we do when we demand that imperfect people behave perfectly, according to our private scripts. Altruism burns those scripts. It invites a better question. What wound in them produced this behavior? And an even deeper question: what part of me still needs a behavior to determine my peace? That's the work. And it is work. Let me be clear. This isn't philosophy for Instagram captions. This is battlefield philosophy. It happens on a Tuesday morning in traffic when someone cuts you off. It happens on a Thursday night when someone betrays your trust. It happens in a meeting when someone disrespects your efforts. That flash of heat in your chest, that tightening in your jaw, that story spinning in your mind about how unfair or ungrateful they are, that's your invitation. Right there. Stop, breathe, step back, ask the question quietly. If I act on this anger, will I respect myself tomorrow? Then do the harder thing. Release the story. Release the judgment. Release the expectation. Write it down if you have to. Here's what I challenge you to do today. Keep a small notepad with you, or use the Notes app on your phone. Title the page, Release Log. Every time you feel anger rising, write down what triggered it. Write down what you expected. Then, in one clear sentence, write, I release this, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because you refuse to chain your peace to another person's ignorance. Because you're done letting strangers or weak men rent space in your head. Let the log become evidence, not of your weakness, but of your strength. Proof that you are harder to move, more difficult to provoke, untouchable where it matters most. The man who carries less anger carries more power. Remember that. Seneca said, no man is free who is not master of himself. And anger, unchecked, unexamined, unchallenged, will own you. But the man who learns to let go, not out of cowardice, but out of clarity, he walks through the world like a stone in the river, unshaken, unrushed, unafraid. So tonight, ask yourself, what anger am I carrying that no longer serves me? Then tomorrow, start putting it down. Quietly, deliberately, completely. That's real strength. That's the way forward. Number 4, expectations are silent contracts no one agreed to. Because here's what happens next, and you'll see it in yourself if you're honest. Even when anger fades, even when you practice letting go, something deeper stays behind. Disappointment. Disappointment is quieter than anger, but more corrosive. It doesn't shout. It lingers. It leaks into how you see people, into how you speak to them, into how you trust or refuse to trust again. And it almost always comes from one invisible source. Unspoken expectations. You thought they would know better. You thought they would return your loyalty. You thought they would show up when it mattered. You thought they would appreciate you the way you needed. But here's the brutal truth that Stoic men have confronted for thousands of years. Your expectations are not reality. They're invisible contracts you created, terms and conditions you never shared, rules you never spoke out loud, and yet you hold people accountable to them. Silently, that is a formula for disappointment, for resentment, for bitterness that hardens into cynicism. Marcus Aurelius warned us, don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they weren't in your possession. Translation? Stop obsessing over what people didn't give you. Start noticing what's already in front of you. But most men don't do this. Most men drift through life writing silent contracts in their heads. If I'm good to him, he'll be good to me. If I show up every day, they'll respect me. If I'm faithful, she'll never leave. No wonder life feels like betrayal after betrayal. No wonder trust feels impossible. Because you're not just facing reality. You're facing the wreckage of your own unspoken scripts. Let me offer you something harder and better. Burn the contract. Today. Not because you're weak, but because you're done living in illusion. Do this right now on paper. Take out your journal or the Notes app on your phone. Title the page, The Contract I Never Spoke. Write down who you're disappointed in, what you expected from them, what you assumed without telling them, Be ruthlessly specific. Then read it back to yourself. Ask quietly, did they ever agree to this? If the answer is no, cross it out. Not because they're right, not because they didn't fail you, but because you refuse to stay trapped in the mental prison of silent agreements. Stoic men free themselves by seeing clearly. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And few things waste a man's life more than stewing over contracts no one signed. It doesn't mean you trust recklessly. It doesn't mean you stop setting boundaries. It doesn't mean you excuse dishonor. It means you stop expecting loyalty where it was never promised. You stop expecting understanding from people who never learned it. You stop expecting yourself in people who aren't you, because that's the most exhausting expectation of all, assuming others will act with your integrity, your discipline, your heart. Release them, and in doing so, release yourself. Here's what I want you to practice this week. Every time you feel disappointed, stop. Take 3 breaths. Ask yourself, what contract did I write that they never signed? Then cross it out mentally or on paper. Not to forget, but to remember better. To remember, your peace is your responsibility. Your freedom is your choice. Your expectations are your creation. Control them or they will control you. Because the man who burns his silent contracts walks lighter than most will ever know. Number 5, if you want peace, learn to let go before you forgive. Because once you've burned the silent contract, once you've crossed out the expectations that never served you, there is still one weight left behind. Control, that quiet, invisible grip you keep on people, on situations, on outcomes, even after the anger has cooled, even after the disappointment has faded, even after the silent contract has been destroyed. There is still part of you, if you're honest, that wants them to change, wants them to realize they were wrong, wants life to correct itself in your favor. But that grip is another prison, and Stoic men were never meant to live in chains. Epictetus said it plainly, some things are up to us, and some things are not. And the faster you divide your life along this line, the freer you become. But here's what nobody tells you. Forgiveness is never the first step. Forgiveness is the fruit of letting go, not the root. Most men are stuck because they try to forgive before they release their grip on control. They say, I forgive, but I still want them to change. I forgive, but I need them to understand. I forgive, but I'll never forget. That's not forgiveness. That's control in disguise. Real peace begins when you release the need to control anything but yourself. You cannot control whether they apologize, whether they regret, whether they change, whether life looks the way you want. But you can control your attention, your energy, your response, your boundaries. And sometimes a boundary is simple. I release this. I will not carry what does not belong to me. Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And nowhere is this more true than in the stories we keep replaying about people who hurt us. They move on. They forget. They build new lives. And here you are, shackled to an old scene, rehearsing lines of a story that already ended. You were not born for this. So here's your practice today, brutal in its simplicity. Choose one thing or one person you're still trying to control. Write it down in your journal. Then draw a line down the center of the page. On the left side, write, what is outside of my control? List everything, their behavior, their choices, their beliefs, their past. On the right side, write, what is within my control? List your actions, your attitude, your words, your next step. Then, and this is key, circle only the right side. And for the next 7 days, every time your mind drifts back to that story, every time anger or regret or longing pulls at your heart, stop. Take 3 breaths. Whisper quietly, this is not mine to carry. Then return your focus ruthlessly to what is yours. That's the practice. Because a man who learns to let go is already halfway to forgiveness. And a man who forgives from true letting go becomes almost impossible to disturb, not because he forgets, but because he refuses to chain his future to someone else's past. That is clarity. That is peace. That is the life Stoic men were born to build. So tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, what am I still trying to control that was never mine to hold? And tomorrow, begin to put it down. Not for them, for you, because a man who lets go before he forgives doesn't just survive life, he transcends it. Number 6. Altruism teaches you to love without needing to own. And once you've learned to let go before you forgive, truly let go, something powerful shifts inside you. You start to see love differently. Most men never get there. They think love is something you give, but only if it's returned. They think connection is something you build, but only if it lasts forever. They think vulnerability is something you show, but only if it's safe. But that's not love. That's possession. That's control dressed in the language of connection. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery in love, real bravery, is the ability to love without needing to own. Altruism teaches this like nothing else. Because when you practice giving without expecting, when you practice letting go before forgiving, you begin to realize the strongest love is a love that asks for nothing in return, not because you don't care, not because you don't feel deeply, but because you refuse to chain your heart to someone else's behavior. That is what separates men who love from abundance from men who love from fear. Here's the reality. Most men fear love because they fear loss. Most men control love because they fear abandonment. Most men close off because they fear rejection. But the Stoic doesn't love because it's safe. He loves because it's who he is. He does not withhold. He does not measure. He does not manipulate. He gives because his heart is full. He walks away because his peace is full. He stays because his choice is full. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And what greater revenge is there against the selfishness of the world than a man who loves without conditions, not foolishly, not recklessly, but freely. Freely means without chains. Freely means without invisible contracts. Freely means without turning love into a transaction. This does not mean you stay in toxic relationships. This does not mean you allow disrespect. This does not mean you abandon boundaries. Quite the opposite. It means your love is offered from strength, not from need. It means your boundaries are built from clarity, not from resentment. It means your kindness flows because it's who you are, not because you are starving for validation. Here's what I want you to practice today. Take out your journal. Title the page, "I love without owning." List 3 people you care about deeply. Beside each name, write, "What do I want from them that I do not need?" Be honest, brutally honest. Maybe it's recognition. Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's affection. Then ask yourself, if they never gave me this, could I still love them from a place of freedom? And if the answer is no, you've just uncovered the work you need to do. Because the man who can love without needing to own is unbreakable. He does not chase. He does not cling. He does not beg. He offers himself fully and lets life unfold. And that is rare. That is strength. Seneca said, "We should love all, but be familiar with few, and make the few well tried before we give them our confidence." Translation? Love broadly. Trust carefully. Hold loosely, because what's meant for you will stay freely. And what isn't was never yours to hold. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, is my love an offering or a contract? And tomorrow, love cleaner, love freer, love with nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to control, because a man who loves from freedom is the man who never truly loses anything at all. Number 7, stop expecting others to make you happy. Because once you've learned to love without owning, without gripping, without needing, there's only one place left to confront: yourself. This is where the real weight lies. Because long after you've stopped blaming others, long after you've forgiven, long after you've learned to give freely, there's still a quiet lie that lingers in the back of your mind. I will be happy when they understand me. I will be happy when she loves me the way I love her. I will be happy when life finally gives me what I deserve. That is a final illusion, that someone else holds the keys to your peace. That something external, a person, a job, a title, a number in your bank account, will finally give you the life you want. But Marcus Aurelius saw through this lie over 2,000 years ago. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not your circumstances, not your relationships, not your victories. Your thoughts." That means only one thing. Your happiness is not a gift you receive. It is a discipline you practice. Most men never learn this. Most men drift through life like beggars, waiting for people to fill the empty spaces in their soul. They wait for respect. They wait for approval. They wait for love. They wait for peace. But the Stoic waits for no one, because he understands happiness is self-made. It is born from how you see the world, not how the world sees you. And here's the practice: hard, sharp, necessary. Every time you catch yourself thinking, if only they, or I'll be happy when, stop. Catch it like a thief in your mind. Write it down. Title the page in your journal, "I am not waiting." List every thought that begins with, if only, every condition you've attached to your peace. If only my father had supported me. If only my ex hadn't left me. If only I had more money. If only I was in a better city. Then, and this is crucial, cross out every line. Replace it with one sentence: I am responsible for my peace. Nothing outside of you can change that. This doesn't mean you stop striving. This doesn't mean you stop building. This doesn't mean you settle for less. It means you stop postponing your life for conditions that may never arrive. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Because here's the truth most men avoid. If you cannot build peace here, in this moment, you won't build it anywhere. Not in the next city, not with the next partner, not in the next career, not even with more money. Peace follows you because it comes from you. So here's what I want you to do today. Every morning, for the next 7 days, sit in silence for 3 minutes. No music, no noise, no distractions. Ask yourself, if nothing changed around me, could I still build a life worth living from within? Let the discomfort rise. Let the silence speak. Then move into your day, not as a man waiting for happiness, but as a man building it. In your words, in your choices, in your actions, because the man who stops waiting for happiness becomes the man people cannot help but respect. He is rare. He is whole. He is free. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, am I waiting for happiness or am I becoming it? And tomorrow, start becoming it, without needing permission, without needing conditions, without needing anyone to understand but yourself, because a man who no longer waits is already alive. Number 8, silence and altruism are the twin shields of inner peace. Because once you stop waiting for happiness, once you realize no one is coming to save you, another shift begins. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop needing to prove your worth. You stop needing to react. This is where true power starts to crystallize. Because in a noisy world, a reactive world, silence becomes your sharpest weapon. Seneca warned us about the cost of losing control to words. No man is free who has not mastered himself. And nothing reveals mastery faster than restraint. Not just restraint of action, but restraint of speech, restraint of reaction. Restraining your egos need to win every small, meaningless battle. Most men fail here. They react to every insult. They defend every opinion. They bite at every provocation like a chained dog rattling its cage. But the stoic man, the man of depth, he sees noise for what it is. A test. Life will send you noise in many forms. People will lie about you. People will twist your words. People will disrespect you. People project their wounds onto you. And here's the question. Must you answer them? Must you rush to explain? Must you take every bait? Or can you do something most men are too weak to do? Remain still. Remain silent. Remain unmoved. Marcus Aurelius said, to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it. That is the image I want burned into your mind. You are the rock. The world is the sea. Let the waves crash. Let the noise rise. Let the people talk. Your task is not to silence the world. Your task is to become so still, so rooted, that nothing shakes you from within. But silence without strength is avoidance. And silence without altruism becomes coldness. This is why silence and altruism must walk together. Altruism keeps your silence compassionate. It keeps you from becoming bitter. It reminds you that the noisy, reactive people you meet are often hurt, lost, or trapped in their own illusions. Their noise is not a threat. It's a symptom. This is how silence becomes an act of strength, not isolation. This is how you practice it today. Choose one moment, just one, when you would normally defend yourself, correct someone, prove a point, win a small argument. Instead, say nothing, not from weakness, from absolute clarity, from knowing. If I react now, will I respect myself tomorrow? Write it down after. Title the page in your journal, Proof of Strength. Describe what happened. Describe how hard it was to remain still. Describe what you learned about yourself. This is not passive living. This is mastery training. Seneca said, a sword never kills anybody. It is a tool in the killer's hand. Your words are the same. Use them wisely. Use them rarely. Use them only when silence will betray your values, not your ego, because the man who is quick to speak is often empty, but the man who speaks rarely, from a place of calm, every word becomes gold. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, where did I waste words today? And tomorrow, speak slower, speak clearer, speak less. Let your actions roar. Let your stillness disarm. Let your presence speak long, before your mouth does. Because the man who masters silence commands a room without raising his voice, commands respect without asking for it, and commands himself above all else. Number 9, forgiveness is not about them. It's about who you refuse to become. Because once you've mastered the art of silence, once you've learned to hold your tongue not from fear, not from weakness, but from absolute clarity, you will face the next real test, forgiveness. And let me tell you something most men never hear. Forgiveness has nothing to do with them. Not really. Forgiveness is not a favor you grant. It is not a gift you hand to someone when they finally apologize. Forgiveness is a statement about who you refuse to become. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This is the core of it. You forgive not because they deserve it. You forgive because you refuse to mirror their weakness. You forgive because anger and resentment are acid that corrodes only the vessel that holds them. You, and most men, sadly, carry that acid for years. I've seen it. Men bitter at their fathers for decades. Men angry at their ex-wives long after the divorce. Men who talk more about the person who betrayed them than about their own future. What they don't see is that they are still enslaved, still chained, still handing power daily to someone who is no longer even in the room. Seneca warned us, he who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. But most men don't just suffer before it's necessary. They suffer long after it's over. And here's the harsh truth. The longer you wait for an apology, the more powerless you remain. The longer you replay what they did, the more of your life you surrender. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. Forgiveness is not about reconciliation. Forgiveness is about ending your role in the story, ending your role as a victim, ending your role as the man still wounded, ending your role as the one waiting. You walk away, you release it, and you never look back. Here is how you practice this today. Find one wound you still carry. Write it down. Be honest. Describe exactly what happened. Then draw a line under it and write these words. This ends with me. Sit with that. This ends with me. Not because they apologized, not because they changed, not because it's fair, but because I am done being the man who lives in this shadow. Because I am building a life so rich, so full, so strong, that their actions no longer shape my identity. And if the pain rises again, because it will, you say to yourself quietly, if I hold on to this, will I respect myself tomorrow? Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is armor. Forgiveness is strategy. Forgiveness is freedom. Seneca also said, no man was ever wise by chance, and no man ever became free by accident. Forgiveness is not for them. It never was. It is for you, for who you want to become, for the life you refuse to delay. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, what pain am I still rehearsing that deserves no more of my time? And tomorrow, write it down, then put it down, because the man who forgives is not soft, he is finished. Number 10. The truly altruistic man never stays angry for long, because once you've forgiven, really forgiven, not out of weakness, not out of forgetting, but because you've refused to stay chained to your past, there's one final truth to face. Anger will still visit you. Even the most disciplined men feel anger. Even the most stoic man in history clenched his jaw, felt his chest tighten, felt heat rise in his veins. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Meaning, it's rarely the thing that made you angry that destroys you. It's your inability to release it. Anger is natural, but staying angry, holding on to it, feeding it, that's a choice. And most men, whether they realize it or not, are addicted to anger. It becomes identity. It becomes fuel. It becomes a false sense of power. But real power is measured by how quickly you can return to calm, by how fast you can exit the storm within yourself, by how little you allow the outside world to own your mind. This is why the man who lives with true altruism, the man who has made peace with imperfection, with disappointment, with letting go, never stays angry for long. He knows anger is expensive. It costs him focus. It costs him clarity. It costs him time. And time, as every Stoic knows, is the only currency that cannot be earned back. Seneca warned us, while we are postponing, life speeds by. Every hour lost anger is an hour you do not get back. So here is your practice today. Every time anger rises, and it will, see it for what it is, an alarm, a signal, a test. Count backwards in your mind from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then ask yourself directly, if I stay angry, will I respect myself tomorrow? Not. Will they change? Not. Will they understand? Not. Will it be fair? But will I respect the man I am becoming? If I stay here in this emotion for 1 second longer, this is a test. Release fast. Return to calm fast. Move on fast. This is not about being emotionless. It is about being unowned. Because a man who stays angry is still owned by what hurt him. But the man who lets go quickly, he walks lighter. He works faster. He loves deeper. Because nothing is taking up space in his mind but what belongs there. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to write this down. Title the page, What I Am Done Carrying. List every anger you still hold, big or small, petty or deep. Then beside each one, write, This does not deserve my time. Because anger will visit you, but it should never live with you. It should never make its home inside a man like you. Remember, the strongest man is not the man who never feels anger. It is the man who can feel it fully and release it completely. That is control. That is freedom. That is the final step of altruism. Because the man who lets go of anger quickly has more energy for what actually matters. Building, loving, leading, living. Tonight, ask yourself, am I feeding my anger or am I freeing myself from it? And tomorrow, act like a man who is already free, because life is far too short, and your mission is far too important to waste another second in chains. And that's the journey we've walked together, a journey not of avoiding emotion, but of mastering it, not of becoming cold, but of becoming clear, not of suppressing anger, but of releasing before it owns you, because this is the heart of Stoicism, to live awake, to live deliberate, to live free from the invisible chains of expectation, resentment, and noise. We are not here to control the world. We are here to control ourselves. We are not here to beg for peace from the outside. We are here to build peace from the inside. And every day, in every choice, we sharpen that skill, to pause before we speak, to let go before we break, to love without owning, to give without needing, to forgive without waiting, to move forward without anger. Because a man ruled by emotion is a man easily ruled by anything. But a man led by reason, grounded, present, untouchable, that is a rare man. That is a man who changes the world. Quietly, if this journey has spoken to you, subscribe, stay connected. Share this with a man who's walking his own quiet battles. And in the comments, write one word that defines your inner journey right now. One word that marks the man you are becoming. This is not for views. This is not for vanity. This is for every man willing to live with his eyes open and his heart free. Let's walk forward, deliberately, quietly, powerfully.